The early morning sun filtered through the threadbare curtains of their one-bedroom flat, casting soft lines across the wooden floor. Ada sat at the edge of their narrow bed, her back straight, her eyes hollow. She was 38 now. Still beautiful, her dark skin flawless, her cheekbones high, her frame graceful, but the sparkle she once carried had faded. 10 years of marriage, and not a single child to show for it. Just silence, months folding into years, and the haunting emptiness that clung to her womb like a curse. Kenneth, her husband, moved about the room, humming faintly as he buttoned his worn-out shirt. A carpenter by trade, his hands were rough and calloused, his shoulders hunched with worry. He loved her. Ada knew that. But lately, love had been no match for the pressure mounting from his family and the whispers that slithered through the compound walls. 10 years is too long, they would say. What's the use of a woman who can't give you a child? One evening, as Ada returned home with a bag of Gary, she paused just outside the kitchen window. Inside, Kenneth's mother stood with her arms folded. "She's barren," the older woman hissed. "Useless. If you don't take another wife soon, I will find one for you." Ada didn't move. She didn't cry. Not there. She tiptoed away, entered the house quietly, greeted Kenneth with a hollow smile, and locked herself in the bathroom. That night, she stood in front of the mirror, her hands resting on her flat stomach. Tears slid down her cheeks, warm and bitter. She wasn't just losing her dignity. She was slowly losing herself. And the worst part? She didn't know how much longer she could hold on. Ada had grown used to the silence of midnight. That was when her pain came alive the most, when the world slept and her thoughts screamed the loudest. She'd kneel on the cold tiled floor, her wrapper tied loosely around her waist, eyes swollen from tears that never truly dried. "Lord," she would whisper, voice trembling, "if you truly see me, why have you forgotten me?" Prayer became her lifeline. Fasting became her language. Some days she would go without food, pacing their tiny living room, laying hands on her stomach, commanding life to spring forth. Other nights, she'd bury her face in her pillow and cry until her chest ached. Kenneth no longer asked what was wrong. He just turned to the wall and pretended not to hear. Hospital after hospital, test after test. She learned to smile at the nurses, to act like she was hopeful. But inside, she was crumbling. One doctor said her fallopian tubes were blocked. Another said they were clear. One said it was fibroids. Another said stress. The contradictions became heavier than the diagnosis. When the hospitals failed, she turned to herbalists. Roots, leaves, bitter powders she could barely swallow. She drank concoctions that burned her throat and soaked in leaves that left her skin itchy. Yet nothing. Then came the dream. A dusty compound. An old woman with milky eyes sat on a wooden stool under a tree. She didn't smile. She didn't blink. She just stared at Ada and said, "Your womb was borrowed. It must be returned." Ada jolted awake, drenched in sweat. Her heart thumped wildly as she looked around their dark room. Kenneth was snoring beside her. She stared at the ceiling, wide-eyed. What did the dream mean? Borrowed from where? Returned to who? She told no one. But the fear lingered. Lately, Kenneth had become a stranger in his own home. He no longer lingered at the doorway to greet her with a tired smile. No more warm cups of tea at night, no more casual touches as he passed her in the kitchen. He came home late, ate in silence, and went straight to bed, back turned, arms folded. Ada tried not to notice at first, tried to believe it was stress, work, pressure from his family. But one evening, as she sorted laundry, she lifted his shirt to her nose and froze. A faint scent. Sweet, floral, expensive. Not her soap. Not anything in their house. Her fingers trembled as she sniffed again. It wasn't just perfume, it was proof. She waited for him that night, her heart pounding in her chest like a warning drum. When he walked in, she held up the shirt. "Who is she, Kenneth?" He stopped, looked at her. And for the first time in years, there was no softness in his eyes. Just exhaustion, frustration, anger. I'm tired, Ada. I'm tired of waiting. 10 years. 10 years of nothing but prayer and tears. His voice cracked, loud and bitter. I'm a man, Ada. A man who wants a family, not just hope and disappointment. The words hit like stones. Ada didn't speak. She slowly sank to the floor, her knees giving way under her. Her hands clutched her stomach instinctively, as though trying to shield a child that wasn't there. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Just pain. Crippling, breathless pain. The sun was already dipping low when Ada left the market, her basket of vegetables swinging loosely in her hand. Her feet dragged on the dusty road, her mind replaying Kenneth's angry words. Her heart ached like an open wound, and each step felt heavier than the last. That's when she saw her. A hunched old woman, wrapped in layers of faded clothes, sat silently near a mango tree at the roadside. Her lips never moved, but her eyes clouded, strange, locked onto Ada. Something about her felt wrong, or right. Ada couldn't tell which. As Ada passed, the woman reached for a stick and scribbled on the red earth, "Go back to your father's house for 7 days." Ada blinked, stunned. "What?" she whispered, looking around. But the woman said nothing, just pointed at the words. She didn't know why she obeyed. Maybe it was the heaviness in her soul. Maybe it was the woman's eyes. That same evening, she packed a small bag and boarded a bus to her father's village, leaving Kenneth without a word. Her father, old and bent, welcomed her with confusion, but didn't ask questions. Ada stayed in the small mud brick house, praying, weeping, waiting. Then came the 7th night. She woke gasping, her lower body drenched in blood. She tried to scream, but darkness overtook her. She collapsed on the floor, and in the dream, there she was again. That same woman, her voice echoing in the void, "You are now free." Ada woke up breathless, but everything felt different. Ada stood in front of the small mirror in their bedroom, her fingers pressed lightly against her lower belly. Something had changed. She couldn't explain it, but it was there, like a quiet stirring beneath her skin. Her body felt warmer, her steps lighter, her heart oddly hopeful. For days, she ignored it, brushing it off as another trick of her weary imagination. But when the nausea came, strong and sudden, followed by the strange craving for charcoal and unripe mangoes, her breath caught. Still, she didn't want to hope. Not after all the years. Not after the heartbreak. But she found herself standing at the door of a private clinic anyway, her hands trembling as she clutched her test result. The nurse smiled at her, wide and warm, like she knew something Ada didn't. "Congratulations," she said softly. "You're pregnant." The room tilted. Ada grabbed the edge of the counter, tears flooding her eyes. "Pregnant?" She blinked rapidly, unable to speak. The words hung in the air like a miracle. She rushed home, bursting into their tiny flat. Kenneth stood by the window, startled by her sudden entrance. She held out the paper, her lips quivering. He took it, read it slowly, then looked at her with wide, unbelieving eyes. You're serious?" he whispered. Ada nodded, tears flowing freely. Kenneth sank into the nearest chair, speechless. He buried his face in his hands. Then, for the first time in years, he wept. Word spread quickly. Women came in droves to dance and ululate. The Barren woman had conceived. Even Kenneth's mother, the same woman who once called her useless, now clung to Ada with joy, blessing her over and over. But deep inside Ada, amid the joy, something uneasy stirred. Something she couldn't yet name. At first, the pregnancy felt like a gift. Ada walked with a new spring in her step, her hand often resting protectively on her growing belly. But by the 5th month, things began to shift, subtly at first, then unmistakably. The baby moved too much. Not the usual soft flutters other mothers described, but violent kicks that jerked her awake in the dead of night. Kenneth once watched in horror as her stomach seemed to ripple unnaturally, like something was pushing hard from inside, trying to break out. He said nothing, but she saw the fear in his eyes. Then came the sleep-talking. One night, she woke up to find Kenneth sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at her. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice groggy. "You were speaking," he said. "But it wasn't your voice. And it wasn't English. Or Igbo." Ada laughed nervously, brushing it off. But it happened again. And again. Words she didn't know flowed from her lips in her sleep. Words that made Kenneth stop sleeping beside her altogether. The worst happened one morning when she walked past their mirror. It shattered. No warning, no pressure, just exploded in a burst of shards as she passed by, like it couldn't bear her reflection. Word spread. The midwife who had once sung praises now refused to come near her. "This child is not of this world," she whispered to Kenneth before fleeing. Ada sat alone that evening, staring at the floor, her hands over her belly. The joy had turned to dread. Something was growing inside her. But it wasn't just a child. It was something else. Something watching. Something waiting. Kenneth hadn't spoken much in days. He moved like a ghost in their home, quiet, stiff, avoiding Ada's gaze. She thought he was afraid of the strange things happening. Maybe he was, but there was something else, something deeper. She could feel it. That night, as rain pelted the tin roof and thunder growled in the distance, Kenneth sat by the edge of the bed, hunched, hands trembling. Ada was about to ask if he was okay when he spoke, his voice low, cracked, barely audible. "I need to tell you something," he said. She turned slowly, sensing the weight of what was coming. He couldn't look at her. Before you got pregnant, I went to see someone. A prophet. Not a normal one. He lived far, deep inside the forest. People said he was powerful. Ada's blood ran cold. He told me, he said the only way to have a child was to trade someone's destiny. Just one. In return, the womb would open. Ada's lips parted, but no words came. "I didn't know what it meant," Kenneth whispered. "I swear I was desperate. I thought he meant spiritually, like a sacrifice of prayer. He gave me a candle, told me to burn it the night after the full moon." Ada's hands began to shake. "What night?" she asked quietly. "The night you were in the village," he said. "The 7th night, when you collapsed." The room fell into a thick, unnatural silence. Ada stood slowly, her eyes fixed on him, eyes filled with betrayal, fear, and something darker. "You traded someone's destiny?" she asked, her voice hollow. Kenneth finally looked at her, eyes wide, guilt etched into every line of his face. "I didn't know it would be yours." The wind howled like 1,000 spirits circling the house. Thunder rolled across the sky, shaking the windows as lightning forked in jagged flashes outside. Inside the small bedroom, Ada gripped the bedsheet, her face twisted in agony. She was only 37 weeks gone, too early, but the pain tearing through her body felt like the earth itself was splitting. "It's too soon," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "Kenneth, something's wrong." Kenneth leapt from the chair, panic lighting his face. "I'll call the doctor," he said, fumbling with his phone. But the screen stayed frozen. No bars. No signal. He tried again. And again. Nothing. The power cut out. The room fell into total darkness, save for the faint blue glow coming from Ada. Kenneth's mouth fell open. Her skin shimmered, pulsed, with an eerie, soft light that moved beneath her like waves. Her eyes were shut tight, sweat beading on her forehead, her breath ragged. "Ada, hold on. Please, just hold on," Kenneth cried, racing to light the kerosene lamp. It flickered weakly, casting long, nervous shadows. Then, the front door creaked. No knock, no footsteps, just a slow, unnatural swing. It opened wide, and standing in the entrance, soaked from the storm, was the mute beggar woman. Ada's eyes flew open. Kenneth's heart stopped. She stepped inside, her wrapper clinging to her thin frame, her hair dripping. Her clouded eyes glowed faintly in the lamplight. Kenneth backed away, instinctively shielding Ada. "You. What are you doing here?" he stammered. She didn't answer. Not with silence. Not this time. Her voice cut through the room, clear, strong, ancient. "He must not cry until the truth is told." Ada screamed again, louder this time. Her body arched violently off the bed, then dropped. Her eyes rolled back, only the whites visible as her lips moved soundlessly. Kenneth dropped to his knees, trembling. "Please," he whispered. "What truth? What truth?" The woman's gaze didn't shift. She looked only at Ada. Then the lamp flickered again and went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Only Ada's glowing body remained, lit from within like a fire trapped in flesh. The wind roared louder. Somewhere, a child's soft cry echoed, not from Ada, but from everywhere. Then, silence. And in that breathless silence, Kenneth realized the labor had stopped. But the child had not yet come. Not fully. And the truth? It was still buried. To be continued. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss out when part 2 drops.